Thank you for being here today for our professional development on helping students be successful in reading, writing, and mathematics. My name is Lisa Weiss, and I'll be with you for approximately the next 20 minutes as for our topic. Specifically, we'll talk about academic proficiency, evidence-based instruction, look at it with respect to reading, writing, and mathematics, take a little glimpse into motivation and engagement and what that means for students' participation in the academic areas, wrap up with a summary, and I'll provide a list of my references for those of you who are interested in learning more. Specifically, we want to talk about academic proficiency and recognize that it is a child's ability to meet or exceed standards of knowledge and skills in our core academic areas. For the purpose of this presentation, we're talking about reading, writing, and mathematics. And it's more than rote memorization or passing a test or getting a grade that is higher than the 50th percentile on a standardized test. It involves a deep understanding and the ability to apply the learned concept to real world context. That's what education is about altogether, is preparing us for life, for helping us get the skills that we need to go into the grocery store, to be able to read the labels, to identify how much money it's going to cost if we get this brand versus this brand, even looking at how many calories or the specifics on the label related to a package of cereal. It's about applying the skills that we learn in the classroom to our lives outside of the classroom. It's about demonstrating mastery of the content and our ability to use it to solve problems, think critically, and communicate effectively. And that's not only what we want in school, but it's what we definitely want and need outside of school. In looking at reading, when we think about academic proficiency with reading, it's about understanding and interpreting a wide range of texts, from narrative stories to informational articles, helping us to distinguish the difference between fact and opinion, helping us to understand how to decode words, comprehending and analyzing our ideas. Specifically, according to the National Reading Panel, they talked about the value of reading comprehension and how it requires the coordination of several complex processes that come together that include word recognition, background knowledge, and inferencing. Reading is not an easy task. It's not natural. It's unnatural. Our brains are wired for language, not for reading. And so really taking the time to understand the components of reading and what's necessary to help children be successful is something we'll dive into today. Academic proficiency related to writing is the proficiency or the ability to organize thoughts coherently, to use appropriate grammar and style or syntax, and clearly communicate ideas in the written form. One of the most difficult things related to writing is being able to communicate the relationship between letters and sounds and use spelling and semantics and syntax to express our ideas and our thinkings. Beyond basic sentence structures, proficient writers know how to revise and improve their work using feedback and reflection. Writing is an active process. It continues. It constantly has a way of bringing itself back to the forefront and helping us to be able to refine what we have done, looking at ways to continuously improve. Writing is a tool for thinking and learning across all subjects, not just language arts. We see it in terms of word problems in math. We see it in communicating our observations in science. We see it as we explore social studies and different cultural experiences in which people may communicate through pictures or through words, even in history, how information has been communicated previously. Writing is just not about getting words on paper, but getting words on paper that express an idea and communicate information effectively. Writing is a form of communication. Math, it's about proficiency and encompassing a solid understanding of mathematical concepts, not just the ability to memorize mathematic or multiplication facts, the ability to solve real world problems, The National Mathematics Advisory Panel stated that students must learn to solve problems not only by remembering procedures, but by understanding why those procedures work. Proficient students can reason mathematically and apply concepts across context. So we look at simple mathematical problems such as I want to buy this from the dollar store. Well, if it's a dollar store, it should only cost $1, but we have to consider that there are state taxes that we need to pay that's placed on this dollar amount. And if our tax percentage is 9%, then that item's not going to cost me $1. The item's going to cost me $1.09. So looking at it in terms of just basic arithmetic, for example, to problem solving. I'm interested in purchasing a house. I don't have money for that house. I need to look at taking out a loan. There's a 15-year loan. There's a 30-year loan. What's going to make the most sense for me now and in the future? How do these interest rates and the flexibility within those interest rates impact me depending upon the job that I have, the way that I want to live my lifestyle? And while that may seem a little bit abstract, especially if we're talking to, first through 12th graders, it's something that they need to understand. Financial literacy is critical to their life after. We need to make sure that whatever we're teaching, whether it be reading, math, or writing, that we're using evidence-based instruction. Evidence-based instruction is instruction that has gone through rigorous research, peer-reviewed, and has demonstrated a positive impact on student learning. It's a teaching strategy that's been tested under controlled conditions. It's proven to be effective across multiple settings and for multiple groups, and it's applicable to real classrooms with diverse learners. Evidence-based instruction is necessary to help close some of the learning gaps that we see that our students are coming to school with, help students achieve that academic proficiency we want them to achieve. We have to engage in instruction with our children that demonstrate results, not what's popular, like with what's on teachers' pay teachers or what has always been done. Well, the alphabet chart is above the whiteboard. Why is it above the whiteboard? Because it's always been that way. Okay, well, if we're working with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students who need to understand how to form the letters, wouldn't it make more sense for that alphabet chart to be below the whiteboard so that they can trace it with their fingers? Why is it above the whiteboard? Because it's always been done that way. So we need to look more at evidence-based instruction and practices and look at how we can integrate those into our classrooms because they're backed by research. They say they have evidence that it will work, and we need to do not what we've always been done, but do what we know is right by our learners. Gerson asserts that instructional decisions should be based on what's best available evidence and not our intuition, and certainly definitely not just what's easiest or the way it's always been done. In reading, we're going to look at it a little bit closely because there's been a lot of fluctuation in what is and is not acceptable in the world of reading. We went from straight phonics to whole language to balanced literacy, and now we have found that, wow, since the mid 80s, around 1986, there has been research that has said that there is a science behind reading, that we know that reading is not natural, that our brains are wired for language, they're not wired for literacy. And now that we have brain imaging abilities, we're able to see exactly how our brain functions in terms of taking letters off of a page and being able to turn those letters into meaning, connect it to our knowledge that we already have related to language comprehension, and build understanding. Castles affirms that reading is a learned skill that requires instruction in the alphabetic principle and the mapping of sounds to print. The alphabetical principle is that relationship between letters, also known as graphemes, and the sounds of our letters, also known as phonemes. We have Scarborough's reading rope that shows two large components, the language comprehension piece and the word recognition piece, and how they're broken down into smaller units that, when combined together, when practiced repetitively, when introduced through evidence-based practices, we go from individuals who may be proficient in language and not understand letter grapheme relationships, and slowly begin to integrate and weave those into more of a comprehensive, tight ability that becomes very automatic in our manner in which we can look at words on a page and process those for understanding to get the meaning behind that. According to Moats, who is related to Lexia, who has provided lots of materials for the Lexia program for letters for teachers, LETRS, which is Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. They state that explicit instruction in phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension is necessary for nearly all children to become proficient readers. There are those exceptional children who are hyperlexic and are able to just look at a page without any instruction whatsoever, and to be able to take those letters, those random symbols, and put them into words in which they're able to read. As students progress, they shift from learning to read to reading to learn. And this means that the focus slowly moves off of those letter sound relationships and looks at the meanings associated with those words. Once our brain becomes very proficient in connecting those language sounds with what's also known as a letter box, our brain processes those individual letters so quickly it almost seems automatically, but our eyes are actually scanning every letter in that word. But once we have that as a solid base, which is typically before third grade, it means that now we're beginning to use reading as not just a means to an end, but a means to understanding other subjects. So we teach children how to comprehend informational text, to build their academic vocabulary, recognize various text structures. And when we're doing this, Fisher and Frey recommend explicit modeling and even annotation of text. Even as a graduate student, I annotate my text. So I read a paragraph, and after I've read that paragraph, I look at it closely and say, what did that mean for me? And if I can't take that paragraph and put it in a sentence or two, then I take the time to reread that paragraph, because the words on the page have to help me develop a level of comprehension that I am getting meaning from that. Otherwise, it's just practice in word naming. There's also an emphasis from Shanahan that says background knowledge is essential for comprehension. We have to know what it is we are expected to learn by reading this passage. Going in without an established purpose can be like going into Walmart and just wandering around without a shopping list. It's just random. I might get this piece here and this piece here and that piece there, but I may not get the pieces that I need for the recipe that I want to use for tonight's dinner. And so that if we don't understand the purpose for why we are reading and take the time to put it in relation to the subject matter that we're interested in study, we're going to miss the main pieces that the author's trying to communicate to us. So students benefit from explicit instruction from a teacher that shows them how to analyze complex text and how to make meaning across those curriculum areas. One of the pieces that's foundational to learning to read, or the 5 pillars that are associated to learning to read, are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. These are some teaching strategies that can be utilized to strengthen our instruction in reading, and I'll allow you to read those for yourself, and this PowerPoint will be available to you if you're interested in going back and looking at what you currently do and giving yourself a pat on the back, affirming your practices, and also if you're not doing some of these things, an opportunity to investigate more things that you're able to apply that will help build your students' ability to read. Moving into writing, writing supports our thinking, comprehension, and communication. We write across all content areas just as we read across all content areas. Graham and Perman emphasize writing is a tool for thinking and learning, and it should be integrated across disciplines. When students write about what they read or learn, they are engaging in deeper processing. So the ability, again, much like an annotation in a book, when I read that paragraph, I take time to think about it and say, what is this paragraph communicating to me? And can I summarize it in a sentence or two? I am strengthening my ability to comprehend that text and really giving myself notes to support that access to that information should I need to come back to it. So what it looks like if we break it apart, that when writing to build student skills, we write across the curriculum. It's not just confined to language arts. It is certainly not confined to Friday's spelling test, but it's about improving retention, comprehension, and being able to express ideas across subjects. It helps teach children how to combine, summarize, and put information in paragraph and essay formats depending upon their purposes. Is it a persuasive essay? Is it a narrative essay? It is a descriptive essay. There are multiple variations for what we're doing and ways that it can be used in the different academic areas. How we use it in math versus how we use it in science versus how we use it in language arts. We need to make sure we're using those evidence-based instruction that was founded in heavy research, peer reviews that showed positive impact on children in a variety of settings and children with diverse backgrounds. So we need to explicitly teach sentence construction, paragraph construction, and model how to use graphic organizers to help us in getting our ideas from our mind to our paper. Writing intervention that is really popular is self-regulated strategy development. It's one of the most supported frameworks in writing these days, and it approaches writing by giving children a way to plan, draft, evaluate, and revise their writing. It becomes a routine, and when they're given immediate feedback, opportunities for reflection, modeled and guided practice, and the teachers solicitate a self-reflection from that child. What are some of the things you struggled with? What are some of the things that you noticed in your writing? How does your writing differ from this sample writing that I have? It continues to increase children's proficiency in writing. Or mathematics, I see my time is going so quickly, I can't believe how fast it goes. But we're building our math success on 3 components: conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and problem solving. It's not enough to memorize basic math facts. It's great to be fluent in them, but we need to be able to apply them to real world problems. I go in to shop for clothing, it's 50% off. What does 50% off mean? Am I getting a deal on this? I'm getting 10% off of this. It's a cheaper pair of pants than I would have gotten if I got the ones that were 50% off. I need to be able to understand what percentages means and how that applies, especially to my bottom line. As a teacher, our income is quite limited, and so getting away from it just being some answers on a page, but real world application. So early numeracy and number sense are especially important in building a strong foundation for later application. Children must learn to solve problems not only by remembering procedures, but understanding why those procedures work. So foundational math skills is developing a conceptual understanding before algorithmic instruction. So they have a base knowledge of numbers, quantities, they have the concrete representations where they're able to move the manipulatives that then become representational by perhaps tally marks that then become abstract and we're able to calculate it in our head. The use of visual models, number lines, arrays really increase the ability to comprehend that in more of a longer term situation. The evidence-based practices related to math is that concrete representational abstract sequencing that goes right along with the cognitive development of young children. That they're thinking at a pre-operational stage, at a concrete stage, and then an abstract stage. So connecting that to Piaget's level of cognitive development is spot on and what it is we need to do to facilitate student learning. And then the interventions must be explicit. They must be evidence-based. Using manipulatives before using symbols and building a strong math vocabulary is essential. But ultimately, regardless of how much effort we put into it, how much information, how much time we have investigated what evidence-based practices exist, we have to make sure that the children are motivated and engaged and interested in learning. And so Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset shows that children who believe they can are more likely to persist. So recognizing their efforts, giving them a pat on the back for trying, and also showing them that you didn't just miss this problem. It's not you were looking at 11 plus 4 and you missed it all together. You got 14. That is very close to 11 plus 4. 11 plus 4 is 15. You got 14. So let's look at it. Did you not see the 1 and you assumed it to be a 10? Did you just move quickly? What was it that may have led you to find the answer of 14 versus the answer of 15 when looking at 11 plus 4? And that immediate response, immediate feedback, not waiting a week to get information back to them, not getting a red pen out and telling them what they did wrong, but marking what it is they did right and finding that one step in there that led them astray, as opposed to, wow, you made a mistake, the whole thing is worthless. So students who are motivated are more likely to invest effort, persistent, and push through challenges for better performance. So in summary, effective instruction is evidence-based. We're wanting to support students in reading, writing, and math, so we have to provide effective evidence-based interventions, instruction, and differentiated interventions in a supportive environment that promotes motivation and engagement. Here are multiple references with the DOI links for you if you are interested in exploring more of the content that I just rushed through quickly, but it's always something that, since it's recorded, you could go over again. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out. I appreciate your time, and I wish you happy studying in evidence-based practices and even more luck in applying those with your children, helping to motivate them and let them know that you care about them beyond the score that they're going to get on their paper. You care about them and being able to apply this outside of the school environment, because that's what's in their best interest. We build the learning here, but we really need to see the application in the real world. So thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful evening.